afternoon. Welcome to this ET Now special. I'm Nayantara Rai and you've tuned into the Budget Roundtable. Countdown is on for 1st of February, Friday, the last budget presentation before general elections 2019. We've already seen competitive populism at its best, whether it's a 10% quota or the Congress party hitting back with that minimum income guarantee. What are India Inc.'s expectations? Joining me on the show today, Dr. Arvind Virmani, Vinayak Chatterjee, as well as Raji Mimani. Dr. Arvind Virmani, I'm going to come to you first. You know, a few days ago, we saw Rahul Gandhi make that massive announcement that if the Congress is indeed voted to power, it's going to come out and roll out the minimum income guarantee scheme for the poor to alleviate poverty once and for all. It's his version of Garibi Hatao. But to be fair, before Rahul Gandhi's announcement, we've been hearing a lot about that massive farm relief package, which could make up with direct cash subsidies. What do you make of this announcement? Has Rahul Gandhi forced the hand of the central exchequer for 1st of February?
It's possible that, you know, the gaps which various critics of the government, the genuine critics, I don't mean the political critics, have pointed out. Generally, people have pointed to 2 or 3 specific things which could be related to the budget. One, of course, is the farm and agricultural related issues. Even though agriculture is a state subject, it's clearly the onus of it has been put by critics on the central government. So related to that, and the other issue where again the data is very unclear, but the critics have kind of stuck in a sense, is the job issue and related to it. So on these 2 fronts, the obvious speculation has focused on some kind of a direct cash transfer, either to farmers, to rural areas, rural poor, some conditions excluding the better off, etc. Exactly what it will be is very difficult to say, but some kind of a direct cash transfer. And the second issue which comes up within it is whether it will combine other subsidies which are going to the farm and rural sector and make it into a real big bang, or will they just make it additive and maybe look around for some funds to do it. So I would think there will be something on that if it doesn't happen before the budget, because there was speculation that it may happen today or tomorrow or something. That is the 2 big things which I would expect.
Dr. Arvind Virmani, you have been involved in the budget process. You're still consulted regularly for union budgets. Tell us what Rahul Gandhi has announced for the minimum income guarantee. Is it possible? Is it feasible? Or is it going to create a big problem for the fisc? What about what we're hearing about in the corridors of power, what you just talked about, the direct cash transfer system? How feasible is this? For it to work, will it not have to subsume existing subsidies? We don't know if the political will exists for that.
What I had suggested over the last couple of weeks is that one way to get around this problem of identifying a subset for the cash transfer is to say everybody in rural areas, and then define rural in such a way that that probably covers about 50% of the population. So for example, if you include census towns, or rather exclude them from the rural areas and do a few other things like that, you could probably define rural areas which will cover 50 or less % of the population, and then the obviously very large landowners or owners of a lot of assets could be excluded further, so that roughly 45–50% of the rural population is covered. That kind of thing I think is feasible. Clearly in the medium long term, the only way you can afford it is to get rid of the other subsidies connected to rural areas, like fertilizer and so on, and that's the only way it's sustainable. Otherwise it could be just a token payment. You know, what they may do is just make a small token payment to start the process off, and then after the election combine all the subsidies into a single substantial payment.
Vinayak Chatterjee, do you really believe that we're only going to see a vote on account on 1st of February? What about that farmer relief package? Do you think that's going to be part of what is announced on 1st of February? Or are you one of those who believes that Narendra Modi will want to make that announcement to gain political mileage?
It's a tough question. You see, it's not black or white in the sense that there is a wide continuum between a very strict vote on account and a far more liberal interim budget, because as your viewers know, a vote on account would mean that it's just a pro rata extension of sanctioned budget heads, whereas an interim budget allows the flexibility of new announcements of programs and policies. I would feel at this point of time that the government would really put its finger somewhere in the middle between vote on account and interim budget. So you may have to coin a new word for it or new term for it.
We haven't coined a term for that as yet. Dr. Arvind, let me come back to you. Do you agree with what Vinayak Chatterjee has said? And, you know, once again, I want to ask you, the announcements by Rahul Gandhi, what the Modi government wants to do to help out farmers, what is it going to do for the fisc? You said subsidies must be subsumed, but the bigger question also is, can India afford this? Is the fisc going to go completely out of whack?
I did a paper years ago, I think it was first in 2006 in the Planning Commission, where I showed that if you take only the welfare expenditures of the government and transform it into a cash subsidy, then poverty could be eliminated. So this is not a new thing. This calculation and this paper is still available in the old website of the Planning Commission. So, you know, if it is done right, I don't think it's a populist scheme. In fact, it's more efficient and more effective, and because it really cuts out the leakages and administrative expenditures. And that was one of the reasons why I originally proposed the UID in the same paper which I am referring to. That was the first time I proposed building a UID system to make this effective, you know, this kind of a cash transfer. So if it is done properly, I don't think it's populist. I think it's sustainable. Now the only problem is that, and that brings to the budget question. You know, the convention is that you do a vote in account because both the government and the opposition accept it, and the government never gets stopped. For example, compared to the US, where it has stopped functioning twice or thrice in the last 10-15 years. So the problem is, for if there are a lot of measures which are populist and new, the opposition will not allow it. And of course, they can't stop it in the Lok Sabha, but they can adopt delaying tactics and send it back from the Rajya Sabha a couple of times. I think they're allowed to do it 3 times, you know, constitutionally, and that will create delays. It may delay the adoption of the budget. It may mess it up, you know. So I think given this possibility, I do not think there will be a large number of measures in the budget.
Vinayak Chatterjee, this is going to be an event for India and for Bharat. This is going to be a budget for both of them. Having said that, we've talked about the farmer relief package. What about infrastructure? That impacts labor, that impacts votes. It's election year.
The budget normally doesn't have any big announcements in terms of expenditure heads for manufacturing and services. It normally has the huge allocations for the infrastructure sector. So this time, I think from all that we are gathering from different sources, Indian industry expects the budget to actually be tilted towards the agriculture and social sectors. And this is contextually in some senses all right, because for the infrastructure sector, there is a huge number of projects and programs that have been announced across the last few years of the NDA government. You know, whether it's roads or railways or smart cities or rural electrification or irrigation, a vast number of plans and programs with appropriate budget heads and the fiscal and the financial appropriations are already in place. So the concern really would be, or the expectation would be, that sufficient fiscal space is kept in the interim budget, if we are calling it that, to see that all ongoing projects and programs don't get into any hiccups for lack of clearance of their bills, so that the funds are available, are allocated to the ministries and ready for disbursement, so that ongoing projects on the ground carry on with the same pace or maybe even at a higher pace in the months that the system is more attuned towards political outcomes. I'm talking about the period from, let's say, from the election code of conduct somewhere in the month of March to the new government getting on board with active policies would be around August, September. So we have a period of 5-6 months when the momentum of execution on the ground needs to be fueled by continuous infusions of the appropriate budgetary allocations and fund transfers. That is the concern, but we do see the big picture on the wall, and we do expect the announcements to be tilted towards, as I said, the to address agrarian distress and to address issues of Aam Aadmi, of Bharat, and various social sector schemes that you are aware of.
Rajiv Memani, let me come to you now. You're a tax expert on this panel. Are you expecting any big changes with respect to the Income Tax Act? You're of course part of that committee which is supposed to overhaul the Income Tax Act, overhaul the Direct Tax Code. But on 1st of February, are you expecting big bang changes? Is this not an opportunity to also please the salaried class, the middle class?
So from an Income Tax Act standpoint, I think the government would certainly want to do that. Whether they will do that on a vote on account or not is hard to say. But I think most people are estimating or are guessing that maybe the basic exemption limit which is there right now for 2,50,000, that the government may raise that, maybe to 3 lakhs or whatever. So that the benefit accrues to a lot of the middle class and a lot of the tax, people who are paying tax rate at those particular slab rates and even above. So I think that is the anticipation of, and I think because that so much has been created around that. I do believe the government may introduce that because it may otherwise lead to disappointment, that people, the middle income people will have.
So a case clearly exists for tinkering with the income tax slabs, putting more money into the hands of the middle class as well as the salaried class. Maybe even standard deduction could go up, wishful thinking. But Rajiv Memani, what about corporate tax rates? Are you expecting any action on that? Arun Jaitley in his first budget did provide a roadmap. Are you expecting any action on 1st of February?
I don't have any high hopes that they will reduce corporate tax rates in this budget. I mean, they have given the roadmap in the past, so there's no point in repeating that roadmap. But I don't anticipate that the government will be reducing corporate tax rates. See, this budget largely, if you look at it broadly, is a vote on account. So if there's anything that the government will do where they'll be stepping out of line from a vote on account standpoint, I think it will have to do with things that have a political impact as well, and therefore rural distress is an issue, has to be addressed, has a political ramification as well, and I can see the government trying to address that. Raising the tax slab rates gives a very wide benefit to a large number of people, without costing that much. I can estimate the government may do that. I still won't put a high probability to that, but I think the government may do that also because a lot of expectation has been raised around that. But by and large, as I told earlier also, one of the things that I have seen with this government consistently is that their basic instinct, their basic gut is to be fiscally prudent. So yes, this is an election year, yes they will move, they may be slightly different, but I don't think that they will be far away from what their normal instincts are.
Vinayak Chatterjee, do you agree with Rajiv Memani that on Friday, 1st February, we are unlikely to see any action on corporate tax rates?
Look, the Mr. Jaitley's statement actually had two hands clapping. On the one hand, he had laid out a roadmap of bringing down corporate tax to fairly attractive levels. On the other hand, he said that this was concomitant with removal of various specific reliefs and incentives provided to different industrial and economic sectors as part of the income tax reliefs and concessions. So on the one hand, he was supposed to be removing the special incentives and concessions, and on the other hand, bringing down the effective rate of corporate taxation. Now, I understand that the current government and Mr. Jaitley and the Finance Ministry in particular stand committed to that pronouncement and the roadmap. Once again, I think that this involves significant policy shifts in terms of which sectors are you withdrawing concessions from, how deeply are you affecting the corporate tax cut without impacting, shall we say, the ability to maintain revenues as per the projections, etc., etc. So, as a citizen of the country, I would expect that this matter be handled far more comprehensively in a full budget than an interim budget.
Hold that thought, gentlemen. We have to take a short commercial break. Stay tuned. You're watching Budget Roundtable, and we'll be back in less than 2 minutes. Gentlemen, it's now time to talk about the fisc and the fiscal deficit target. Dr. Arvind Mani, let me come to you. The Modi government has been applauded for sticking to its fiscal consolidation roadmap, for being prudent. Having said that, it's election year. There is, of course, going to be a great deal of populism. There is going to be extra spending, as we always see in an election year. But for this financial year, are you anticipating any slippage at all?
So, my view is that formally, at least in the official numbers, there will not be a slippage, because one of the achievements of this government has been to reduce the fiscal deficit and also kind of stick to the timelines they had indicated, and it would be just throwing away that whole narrative and the advantage, whatever little advantage they gain from it, if they let the fiscal deficit slip. So, I think they will try desperately, maybe by cutting certain types of expenditures while other types have been expanded, and by using the usual tricks which every government has used at some point, is to transfer some of these payments, cash, explicit cash outflows out into the next year, what people call financial window dressing. But the formal numbers, I still feel they will stick to the numbers, even though it's going to be a little difficult.
Vinayak Chatterjee, let me come to you now. Are you anticipating any slippage? The fiscal deficit target is 3.3% of GDP for this financial year. Will the markets be very upset? Will give a big thumbs down in case, that 3.3% becomes, let's say, a 3.4%? Or is it more important to pump prime the economy, to continue pump priming the economy?
No, I think a small amount, between 3.2, even if it goes up to 3.3 or 3.4, I think the market mood is one of continuing to pump prime growth in a situation where interest rates are really not coming down, as we have seen in terms of all the issues raised with RBI. So, the market is keen to see the economy continue to be pump primed, particularly in an era of the next 5-6 months when you don't really see new project announcements, because there will be it's a transition phase. So, with that prospect, I think the market will not cry blue murder if there is a 0.2% increase in the fiscal deficit, as long as the extra expenditure is towards productive asset building and pump priming the economy, and not towards giveaways and freebies and stuff that really doesn't, in a sense, add to economic worth.
Rajiv Emani, you think fiscal deficit target will not be breached? And I'm going to ask you what I asked Vinayak Chatterjee. Will the markets be in a punishing mode in case that 3.3% target is not met? It becomes, let's say, 3.4%?
Yeah, I mean, I don't honestly anticipate that market reactions. I think market would have factored whatever. I think the tax collections, the direct tax collections have been very good. GST has stabilized. Where there were anomalies, to the extent that they could have addressed it, given the fiscal constraints, I think they have addressed. I think the reality is that because of the oil prices that went up, and because of the issues that we have had in the financial services sector, I think that has impacted GDP growth, and that has impacted a little bit on the fiscal side. and to that extent the government has curtailed that a little bit by having greater control on expenditure, especially capital expenditure. But I still think that I don't expect a massive reaction if 3.3% was to be 3.4% or something like that.
Raji Memani, last budget, the markets were spooked by that long-term capital gains tax on equities. There is a big ask from the markets to roll that back. Do you believe there is a case to roll it back?
No, I don't think there's any expectation. I don't think that you'll have such fundamental tax changes happening in this budget. I won't say any chapter is a closed chapter, but I think we have to respect that this is a vote on account, and as I say, unless something is a burning issue, and also apart from being burning issue has political ramifications, I don't think that the government may talk about it in the budget speech, but I don't think they will come out with anything in those lines.
Vinayak Chatterjee, this financial year, the INFS saga has created far too many problems. You've got a liquidity crisis. There's been a credit crunch. We've already started seeing that with the auto sales. Are you expecting on 1st of February any announcements being made when it comes to the INFS saga, how it is being resolved, or any measures to boost liquidity? Let's not forget that had been a major flashpoint as well between Arun Jaitley and the then RBI Governor Urjit Patel.
Well, you know, so far as ILFS is concerned, there is a feeling that after the assets are sold, which I am told informally the expectation is of the debt of 90,000 to 1 lakh crore, about 50,000 will be recovered through asset sales in due course. The balance 50,000 crores has either to be rescheduled or people concerned have to take a haircut. Now, honestly, I don't expect the budget to provide any fiscal bailout to ILFS. The budget doesn't do that. The system between the RBI, the banking sector, the NCLAT, etc., they will have to resolve this. So, a straight answer to your question would be, I don't see the budget directly impacting the ILFS imbroglio, but it is possible to expect the budget to make certain policy pronouncements to make liquidity for the infrastructure sector a little easier than it has been.
Okay, let's see if the Central Exchequer does announce any measures to boost liquidity on Friday. Let me come to you now, Dr. Arvind Nirmani. Narendra Modi has come out with that 10% quota for the economically weaker section. That has led to a belief that if a criteria to avail of that quota is income of 8 lakh rupees, then 8 lakhs should be exempted. A person who earns 8 lakhs should not pay tax. Where do you stand as far as this argument goes? Is there merit in it?
You know, I don't, yeah, I think logically there should be some relationship, but the problem is this, income taxation is for individuals. The quota or poverty type of welfare expenditures are usually for the household. So, first thing you have to do is convert using averages from the census, etc. And I am not sure anybody has done that carefully. I think the effort seems to be, at least what I have seen, is to just criticize for the sake of criticizing instead of measuring exactly how the household income and numbers translate into per individual exemptions and so on. So, that is one kind of technical point, if you will. Now, as far as you know, the middle class is concerned, I have said over the last couple of weeks that one of the things I have found in talking to people, even people who say or I know voted for the BJP, they are not happy with the way the whole issue of tax terrorism, which was in the manifesto of the BJP, has kind of been worked out. They are not happy about that. So some tax reform is if they are able to do it and get it passed through Parliament, some tax simplification, perhaps like you said, some exemptions or rather a rising of the limits, or some simplification is the one which is least costly and most acceptable and possible. So, if they would reduce some complexity, I think it would have a positive effect. Tax reductions again will meet the same problem. The opposition, if there is a major reduction, will say you can't do this, you are not going to be running the country, etc., and create problems. But I would say there is some possibility that there would be some tax reform from the perspective of the middle class.
Rajiv Memani, you just heard Dr. Arvind Virmani talk about tax terrorism. Do you think February 1st, Friday, is a great occasion to allay those fears, to talk about this, to bring about changes? And let's not forget, this is a government that has talked about rewarding honest taxpayers. We haven't really seen that.
No, I think a lot of this is to do with, is the lack of trust between the taxpayer and the tax authorities. And I think the only way to address this is through technology. I think legislative intent can change, other things can be addressed. So the government has has brought in automatic refunds, has reduced the number of cases that come under scrutiny, but still we see lots of cases where there are aggressive demands and a lot of litigation, in many cases prosecution surveys that have been launched, and some of them apparently don't look fair. So I think that the only way to address that, partly maybe through legislation, but a lot of it will be through technology, reducing the interface between the tax authorities and the taxpayer, and using technology, using analytics to address some of these issues. And honestly, there are no short-term fixes to that. I think the only thing I would say is that the because the number of taxpayers have increased, the tax collection has really gone up. This year also again, we are seeing that it's gone up by almost 16%. I think the government needs to use the data that it has through, both through direct tax and indirect tax in a more purposeful manner, so that if they have to track tax evaders, then I think they can do in a more scientific and a more objective way.
And with that, we're completely out of time, so I'm going to have to wrap up this edition of Budget Roundtable. I'd like to thank all the three gentlemen for taking the time out. With that, many thanks for watching.